Now, with the switch from peat-based compost to peat-free compost, in recent years, there's a lot been said about which works best, are some better than others, does this one work, does that one work? I've generally always used peat-free compost. Now, one particular, so if you watch some of my videos or if you watch some of the Potty Mouth Gardening Club, you'll know most of us are a big fan of a particular type of compost called Silver Grow from a company called Melcourt. And that's a peat-free one. It's a bit of a premium one, is what I put in the premium bracket, and it'll cost you around about £8 a bag. And as with everything else in the world at the moment, the price of compost is only going to keep going up. So is it worth it? Well, most of the things you can see here in this rather jam-packed greenhouse at the moment have all been grown. In fact, everything in here has been grown in the Melcourt Silver Grow. Everything has grown well, everything's going great. The only issue I've had, and if I grab them down here, and I've mentioned these a couple of times before, these Rindsberger onions have taken so long to get this stage. So this was the 22nd of January they were planted, and they're still not looking great. So that just, I think the onions and the chat with some of the guys on the Potty Mouth made me think, is the Melcourt Silver Grow all it's cracked up to be? And I guess there's only one way to find out, and that is to do a bit of an experiment. So I've got 4 different types of compost and 3 different types of seeds that we're going to do a bit of an experiment with. Now, the 4 different types of compost. Obviously, we've got the Melcourt Silver Grow. And I've got another one down here, which is a Levington peat-free multi-purpose compost. Now, the reason I've gone for that one is that is a cheaper peat-free compost. Now, that was £10 for 2 bags, 2 big bags, £10. It's about as cheap a bagged compost from a garden centre, from a shop, B&M, somewhere like that. It's about as cheap as you're going to get these days. I also have a bag of Miracle Grow multi-purpose compost. Now, that is a peat-based one. It took me ages to find somewhere still selling peat-based compost that I could use for this experiment. And over there that you can't see, at the back end of the garden, there's a compost bin where I've been making my own compost. And it's got all sorts of stuff in there. It's got browns and greens. It's even got bits of old spent compost and all sorts of stuff in there. So we'll use some of that as a bit of a comparison as well. And what are we going to try and grow in them? So we've got 3 different types of seeds. And I put a lot of thought into the seeds that we were going to use. And I want things that are going to grow quick-ish for the purpose of the experiment. Also, 3 different sort of common things that everybody can get. You get them off the shelf in the garden centre, B&M, that sort of place again. Anybody can pick them up. They're not some fancy varieties that I like to do sometimes with some of the tomatoes or the peppers or things like that. They're things that are easily accessible to anybody. So first one here is a type of radish called Flamboyant 3. Next up, we have a salad bowl mixed lettuce. And finally, we have a type of swede called American Purple Top. And again, for the purposes of the experiment, to try and keep things really fair, we've got 3 different seed suppliers. These ones are Premier Seeds Direct, these ones are DT Brown, these ones are Thompson Morgan, albeit they came free on a magazine. So I guess there's only one thing for it. Let me get set up over here and I'll show you how the experiment's going to go. Just before we get started with the experiment, I thought it was worth just having a look at the differences between the 4 different composts that we're going to try out. Now this one here, the first one here, this is my homemade compost, and you can see the sort of colour of it there is mixing. You can even see there's little bits of perlite in there where I've put spent compost in there, but there's also bits of decomposed leaf, there's bits of wood, things that haven't quite broken down yet, clumps of things. It's not too bad a texture. We've got bits of roots and sticks and things in it. But that's just as it is. That's just how the homemade compost comes out. But it's okay. It'll do the job. Next up, this one here. This is the Miracle Grow peat-based compost. And according to the bag, this is 40% peat. You can see there, it's quite a nice texture. Slightly light sort of brown kind of colour on that one there. Feels okay, doesn't have loads of lumps and bumps in it. It's got a couple of little bits in it, nothing much, nothing too exciting. This one here that I will use for the experiment, you'll see me using this potting up in just a moment there. This is the Silver Grow from Melcourt, and it is a lovely texture. It's really, really dark black. You can see it there, the colour of it. It has a few bits in it and things like that, but it's not too bad. But to feel it in your hands, it looks lovely, it smells lovely, it's a really, really nice texture to that compost. And this one, I don't even know what to say about this. This is the cheap one. This is a Levington's peat-free one. There we go. And it is horrible. There is loads of bits. I mean, look at that. That hasn't broken down. It's a massive bit of wood, a massive stick. And I mean, that's fine if you're topping up beds outside, if you're just lumping it on and chucking it on. But for sowing seeds, and that's not great. I'd have to sieve all of that, and it takes ages to sieve the compost, and it's another layer of stuff you just have to do that takes time. But it's horrible. It's got loads of stringy bits in that I'm assuming is coir that's maybe just not quite broken down into the compost properly, and it's just a horrible texture. I mean, the colour's all right. It's quite a dark colour, like the silver grow, but I mean, just look at those two side by side there. Look at the difference. Hopefully you can see them there in the camera. Hopefully it's picking it up. But it's absolutely awful. In fact, I tell you what I'll do. Let me pop them down. Let me grab the camera off the side of the greenhouse and come over here, and we'll have a look at them all from the top down. So this one's homemade. This one's Miracle Grow. This one is Levington's, and this one is the Silver Grow. So if I just move up there above, hopefully you can see them all sort of side by side there and get a good view of what the differences are, certainly the texture. But this one, honestly, is so lovely and nice compared to this. This is horrible stuff. I mean, just because it looks horrible and because it feels horrible doesn't mean to say it's not going to do a decent job in here. Right, so we're pretty much ready and set to go. So for the experiment, we're going to use these little pots here. You can see them here, tiny little individual pots. And the reason I'm doing these is because I want everything to sort of remain individual. I don't want to use cell trays where they're all joined up together. We'll just have them in their own individual little pots. And we've got the Silver Grow. This is a Silver Grow. I'll not take you through me doing all of them because it's going to be a bit samey. I'm going to do exactly the same. You can see I've got all my little pots here lined up in little rows of 3 ready to go with the 3 different seeds with the different compost. So this is Silver Grow. It's generally a really nice compost. It's got a lovely texture to it because of the way peat-free is made. You often find bits of wood and things like that in it, which is okay. I mean, that's not a massive bit. It's starting to break down. Normally I would consider sieving that out, but I think for the purposes of this experiment, we're just going to leave the compost as they are. As they come out the bag, no different. We're just going to have them all the same. I'm not adding any nutrition to this as well. Sometimes with some of the peat-free ones, when I'm doing my seeds normally, especially like the Silver Grow and the Levingtons there, was to use that one, I would add probably a bit of fish blood and bone, especially when I am potting things on. So maybe it's not just for the seeds germinating, because, you know, things will get moved on pretty quickly. But when I start to bring them on into bigger pots, you know, I was going to use something like this sort of size pot here, this kind of one, bringing it on, I probably would add a bit of blood, fish and bone in. Right, now, I guess this is the slightly difficult bit, in that we've got the seeds here, and I want to do 3 of each seed in each pot. Now, you can probably see there just how small they are, and I want to try and give everything a fair chance to germinate. Sorry, I was just concentrating there, and I'm just pushing it down just a little bit to get good contact on there, and then we'll top that up on there like that. And I have some pre-written out labels. I'm so prepared. So that was a sweet that we just did. There you go. You can see I've written my labels out all nice and neat in a purple Sharpie. Sometimes when I'm down here in the greenhouse and I'm writing my labels out with compost all over my hands and trying to use a blunt pencil that really needs to be sharpened, honestly, you should see the state of some of them. It's an absolute mess. Now, I'm hoping the radish seed will probably be a little bit bigger and a little bit easier to handle. So we'll pop that in there again, trying to sort of space them out. Now, I am doing 3 of each seed. That's just so we get germination from them. You know, because it'd be a pretty rubbish experiment if I put one of each seed in, and then we didn't get any germination. that would be pretty poor. But what I will do is that if more than one seed germinates, these will get thinned out, because the germination, the compost isn't really the germination thing. It's the seed that really dictates the success rate of germination. Now, sorry, I'm just doing the lettuce now, and this is really going to be a challenge to get 3. I've got 4 nearly first time. Let me just pick one of them out. There we go. Right, so we've got 3. I don't know if you can see them there in amongst the compost. Let me move the compost. We've got 3 tiny little lettuce seed, and that surely separating out 3 tiny little lettuce seed. If you're not already, surely that deserves a like and subscribe. Just give us a subscribe, click the button, you know, just for separating them out. But there we go. Let's just pop that in there, and we'll pop the label in as well. So that is pretty much how this whole experiment is going to be set up. Good progress has been made. Let me show you this. Look, it's all very regimented here. Look at them all lined up nice and neat in their own little rows. So like I say, 3 different seeds, 4 different compost for the experiment. Now I put a lot of thought into this experiment. Even then, when I was filming and I was thinking about doing this bit at the end, and I was like, what else can I tell people about it? And I think the one thing that I wanted to say about this experiment is I've tried to make it quite realistic. It's difficult when you're doing it. Obviously, when you're doing an experiment, you want the conditions for everything to be the same. So I'm trying to keep them all. They're going to all be in the same tray. They're going to be in the same greenhouse. They're going to have the same conditions for germination. I'm going to water them from the bottom so they can all take up the water that they need. But I could have gone to the extremes of sort of, measuring out with a teaspoon how much compost go in each one, or weighing it on scales or something like that. But then I thought that's taken away a degree of realism from the experiment. So obviously, as gardeners, when we're growing stuff, certainly when I'm filling these pots, I scoop it up in the compost and just put in around about what I think's right. Again, 3 seeds in each one. When they germinate, I only want one of them to stay, so I'll thin them out. If more than one germinate, we'll thin them out. Hopefully, we will get germination in all of them. But time will tell on that one. We'll keep an eye on it. So this is just part 1 of the experiment. I will follow this up with at least another 1 or 2 videos so I can show you throughout all of those different stages once they've germinated. And again, if we go to the stage of potting them on and bringing them on just to see how the compost do, how they feed those plants, how they bring them on, there'll probably be a part 3 to this one as well. Anyway, that's me done for today. Thank you very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.